Good morning, I'm Veloso from the CSBO at Toulouse, where I'm doing my PhD. And I'm here today to present you my work about how to estimate the biomass using carbon fluxes for the winter wheat by using high resolution remote sensing combined with a crop model. So let's start with the objectives. We can say we have some scientific objectives, which is to aim at accessing the spatial estimates of key variables of the carbon fluxes, like biomass, yield, as I said. And we look to analyze the cause of their spatial variability. As methodological objectives, we can say we aim at enhancing the contribution of high resolution, spatial and temporal resolution remote sensing to quantify the carbon budget, and water too, but I'm not going to present the water model today. And we aim to at building a consistent remote sensing assimilation of food source data with a simple crop model. Here the model you use, it's called the Ceschia CO2, which stands for a sample algorithm for flux and yield estimates. So my study area is located in France, in southwest France, near to Toulouse. Here you can see the window recovered by spot and from satellites. And we have two experimental sites that maybe do you know this, is the Orade and La Mascara sites, where we have a flux tower and the climatic data measurements, and also some LAI and biomass monitoring. For the field data acquisition, we can think about the different scales. We go from the plot scale, a field scale, passing through an intermediate scale, some group of fields, and then going through the regional scale. So we try to have this field data to validate our output model. If you look at the variables we're interested in, we can have, for example, the GAI. We will have the data from our experimental sites and from some intensive field campaigns to validate our outputs. And then if we look at the biomass, we have some sampling from these field campaigns, and then at an intermediate scale, we can compare from the yield from the farmers' information. At a regional scale, we will compare this with the statistics provided by the government. And then we can say the same for the water. We compare to the plot scale with the edge-covariance fluxes, and then irrigation from the farmers, and so on. And for the fluxes, the CO2 fluxes, we compare two experiments with our edge-covariance fluxes. At an intermediate scale, we have some gap. We can say at the regional scale, we're able to compare it maybe from the data from the network Cabo Europe regional experiment. So the remote sensing data, we use the two sensors here, the Formosite 2 and Spot 2, 4, and 5. We have around 200 images from 2006 to 2011. They have 8 meters and 20 or 10 meters resolution, special resolution, depending on the satellites. Here you can see just a NDVI profile for the wheat or sunflower. And we're interested in having a complete temporal series, because we're interested in summer and winter crops in order to have a complete crop rotation to estimate the carbon budget. So here we have a representation of our modeling approach, which we have the Ceschia CO2 at the center. As input, basically we're going to need the land use maps to know which culture is cultivated. Then, depending on the version, we need some soil texture maps too, and the meteorological data that we use the SEFRA maps provided by Meteo France. Then with these inputs, the Ceschia CO2 model based on the Montit theory, light use efficiency. Here we will simulate an LAE and GAE, as you will see the green matter index. And this we will calibrate the phenological parameters with the model by comparing this output GAE with the GAE maps obtained by the remote sensing. These GAE maps we can obtain from direct from the reflectancy images using an inversion of a rigidity transform using neural networks, or simply by the empirical relationship between NDVI and the GAI based on the field measurements. So we compare the GAI profiles with the output of the model and we calibrate the phenological parameters of the Ceschia model. And then we have estimates of the CO2 fluxes and additionally water flux, and then the biomass and yield production that we compare with the, as I said, the edge covariance data or with biomass and yield statistical data. So, the original model, it was the Ceschia model that was able to simulate the GAI, biomass, and yield. And I present a new adaptation of this model to be able to simulate all the carbon fluxes components. Here we have, as it is based on the Monteith's light user theory efficiency, here we calculate the GPP, which is based on the incoming global radiation multiplied by climatic coefficients, multiplied by the FFR, which will depend on the GAI. And here we have a GAI profile and the parameters concerning the growing season, the senescing, so that's the parameters we calibrate with the GAI from the remote sensing data. And then we multiply by effective light user efficiency and a function of stress temperature. Here we can see that we don't have just a constant effective light use efficiency, because we saw that when we use just a constant, the simulations were not quite good. So we tried to correct this effective light use efficiency to take into account the rate of the diffuse diffraction. Here we can see from our fluxes, our data, we plot the global diffuse radiation by the global. Is the diffraction of diffuse radiation, and here the efficiency. We can see we have an exponential relationship, and from this relationship we can derivate the coefficients A and B. Then we correct our light efficiency by this exponential relationship. We can see we add another term here that is the GAI of the D. Divided by the max GI. It is a term we apply during the senescence to take into account the proportion or living tissues of the plant during the senescence. So here are the basics of how we calculate the components of the carbon fluxes. It's the basics. We have from the Ceschia CO2 on simulate the GPP. Then we will simulate to the autotrophic respiration, which is based on the method which divides the autotrophic respiration into maintenance and growth respiration. Then from these two we calculate net primary production, the NPP, from which we will deduce the biomass and the yield, and so it's linked to the area. Then we will also look to estimate the heterotrophic respiration, which is based here on simple on exponential relationship depending on the soil temperature only. It's a very simple one. And then from the NP and the heterotrophic respiration, we will deduce the net ecosystem exchange we are really interested in. So if we go to some results, we can see here study case for the winter wind La Masquer site on the year of 2007, and we can analyze the effect of our correction to take into account the fraction of diffuse radiation. Here on the top we have the simulations of the GPP dynamics. When you apply no correction, and here we have the GPP observed, and by simulated we can see there's a lot of variation and there is a bias. And we apply the corrections, we see we have a lot of better agreement between the observed and simulated. And here we see the bias was corrected. Same we look at the ecosystem restoration.
We have in black the observed and red the simulated, and also we showed the truck perspective in blue. And you can see there is a less effect on the using the correction, but we correct a little bias too. Then if you look at the dynamics of the NE2, we can see a lot of noise here, and when we apply when we take into account our correction, we see it's much better results. In terms of if we take a look at the right side, we have the estimation of the GI in biomass, the GI, the simulated in blue, and the observation in black, and the observation in green. We see that the correction doesn't bring a lot of influence. They are quite the same. And here, the cumulative NE, the season, we can see there is slight improvement. But if we take a look for another site, and here we have the site on 2006, we see there is an improvement now on the selection of the NE cumulated. And here for OHADET 2010, we see a great improvement too. Still, we see there is a shift here at the end of the cycle, which we can, it's due to the heterotrophic respiration simulation. At this point, we use the soil temperature for calculating it. Imagine that if we use also the soil moisture for calculating our ash into 1B to correct its shift there at the end of this. So if you go to another part of the carbon cycle, which is the carbon that's exported, in Ceschia model, we calculate yield from the mass multiplied by a dynamic or a harvest end. That depends on a sum of temperature degree days. It's quite similar to which exists in the stick scrap model. And validating our results, we have different data sets. One is come from our field campaign that we made. We chose around 20 fields, and we made iterative measurements to have the user. We went to the field and manually collect all the data. We have two data sets based farmer surveys, so the farmers they can perform, and then we have an enhancement for about the yield, because sometimes they aggregate their fields and we don't know exactly to which field it corresponds. And then another one is the yield come from the monitors amount on the harvester machine. And then we have some yields like this with a quite good precision, where you can see, for example, the special value of the So if you take a look for these three sets, you can see for our field campaign, here the measured yield and here the simulated yield. We can see a good correlation, a relative error of about 25 points, because they are satisfying. And just the model overestimate a little bit the yield. When you look at the farmers' data set, we see a lot of dispersion, and there is no good. We don't. We can't fit these results because we miss the problem due to the aggregating form. We don't know exactly the plots, so we can't extract information from this. And from the yield monitors, we can observe a very good variation from 0.95, but there is a great bias. Maybe it's due to we need to calibrate the harvester so better estimate. To conclude, we can see from this that VCO2 model it was good on virgin components like the biomass NE. And this for the wheat represented here on the different soil conditions and different management conditions. This model is its advantage is relatively simple and a generic model that requires a few parameters and we hope to generalize this work when the central and satellite will be available to apply this to larger regional scale. So on this time, our research is that We validate the flux for some crops, because we have already validated for the biomass distributed in a year. We have to improve the heterotrophic respirations to check the shift. And this we think about when you couple the model with 56 water-based model, we hope to simulate the soil content, so we can calculate heterotrophic respiration based on solitude and soil moisture. Finally, we have all of these, we hope to estimate the carbon budget, so we can estimate all of this for summer and wind crops. We have a complete rotation, and then at least in our region, we don't have organic fertilization, so we'll be able to calculate the carbon budget. So thank you for attention.